Hello, my name is Scott Heron, and I'm a 1996 and 1999 graduate of the Sport Management program here at Southern Miss. Currently, I am the Associate Dean of Athletics and Exercise Science at Cuyamaca College in El Cajon, San Diego. And as the Associate Dean, I serve as the Athletic Director and am over the Exercise Science program there at the college. Cuyamaca is a comprehensive community college and has about 13,000 students, a relatively small community college by California standards. And so today I'm happy that Dr. Dan Drain has invited me to go through an online lecture with you guys of facility and event management. And the first part of our conversation today will cover a couple of facility issues from a maintenance and risk management standpoint, and then we'll move into event management from a marketing perspective. So part one, facility management and maintenance. As I mentioned from the previous slide, that's what we would be going over. And we're going to go over two particular situations that I have found myself in since December 1st of 2010 when I took over at Cuyamaca College. As you see in this slide, it's just my contact information. Always happy to help out Southern Miss grads. Very proud of the program that we came from. There's people working in the field from Washington State down to Southern California, up in New York, all the way down to the Florida Keys and all places in between. And our program is just well thought of throughout the country. So there's my email address. Feel free to contact me if you have any questions or if I can help you out with anything. So this is our track and soccer complex at Cuyamaca College, and although it's a very blurry picture, you can see that it's a great facility, but it's up on a little plateau on the college, and you can see the mountains there in the background. But all of that area that's kind of looking like a rocky desert, which is the outskirts of East County in San Diego, but our track and field complex actually sits. In fact, our whole college campus sits on a nature preserve. So we have several things that come into play quite often in terms of dealing with the environment. Here's another picture from up above, looking down on the track and field complex and overlooking our whole campus, which stretches out over to the next hill. It's a sprawling, beautiful campus. But this picture is actually taken from up in the nature preserve, and you can really see it's more of the rocky desert, not the nature preserve that you think of down here in Mississippi. So I mentioned we sit on a nature preserve, which means we are not allowed to disturb any of the natural habitats that take place. And there you can see in bright black and yellow, caution, watch out for snakes. And it's really almost become quite comical if it weren't such a serious issue on our campus. Rattlesnakes are a huge problem. Small story for you. We had last week, my track and field coach came into the office and wanted to know what the policy for rattlesnakes is on campus. And I said, well, why? And he said, well, we may or may not have killed some. And I said, well, where? And he said, well, first of all, we saw some girls running from our weight room. And then about 15 minutes later, two of our track and field guys came out laughing. And so the track coach knew something was up and went over to talk to the boys coming out of the weight room. And it turns out that there were two rattlesnakes in there, and that's what sent the girls out running. But our boys on the track team took the time with plated weights to try to corner the snakes and then threw the weights on top of the snakes. So first of all, obviously, huge liability concerns when, one, snakes can get into your weight room, but second, when you're having your track and field team trying to eradicate the snakes on campus, the dangers of them getting bitten, quite obvious. However, when you're dealing with college students, they don't always think of things in that manner. But one of the almost bigger issues was the fact that we're not allowed to kill any snakes on our campus, believe it or not. So when we see a snake on campus, per our policy on campus, are supposed to contact campus police, who then contacts one of the wildlife nature preserve teams who come in and extract the snake and then go place it pretty much back up on one of those hills that you saw. And then they make their way back to their home. But one of the reasons we have so many rattlesnakes is because we have these open fields of grass. We have, I showed you the picture of the track and field complex, but we also have another soccer field and a lower soccer field that we practice on from time to time so we don't use our game field. Well, as I mentioned, we're in a desert climate, and so we've got these 3 lush grass fields, and that ends up attracting all sorts of rabbits. And so since you have rabbits, you're going to have snakes that come and feed on the rabbits. So our only real solution from an environmental standpoint of how to deal with the snake problem was to try to deal with the rabbit problem that we have. And so what we have done from a college perspective is put in owl roosts all over campus to bring in owls that will end up, they're birds of prey, and they end up attacking the rabbits. So hopefully the rabbits disappear and look for another home, and that will take the snakes with them. So it's a long story, but the consequences are serious. And so all over our campus, and especially around all of our athletic facilities, we have these caution signs to watch out for snakes, because we have to do our due diligence to inform the public of potential hazards at using our facilities. So just one risk management thing, thinking about facility maintenance and upkeep. So what you see here is a diagram, obviously, of a gym floor, complete with all sorts of stripings. But this is a project that I've been pushing for since I was hired on December 1st of 2010. I walked onto the floor and could tell that it had never been refurbished. In fact, the gym is 16 years old and nothing had ever been done to the floor. Now, in a community college setting, the athletic facilities aren't truly the athletic departments, because the school ends up renting out the facilities as a way to make money, and it also serves as a classroom for curriculum for the exercise science program and anybody else who ends up needing that for classroom space. So as I said, you may not know, but the recommendations are at least once every 10 years you need to completely sand down, refinish, and restripe the existing gymnasium floor. So the fact that we were 6 years overdue was a huge liability concern when I found that out. And from a risk management standpoint, I mean, can you imagine having somebody blow out an ACL, getting a lawyer who knows stuff about gym floors, and walks in and says, when was the last time this floor was refurbished? And you say, it never has been, and it's 6 years overdue. I think the lawyer's response would be, do you want to settle now, or do you really want to go to court with that? And so it really was a long battle with me to convince the administration. They were trying to say that it's athletics' responsibility. Of course, that's much like they always do. But what I was trying to say was, since this is a classroom and the school uses it as a money maker, I think it's incumbent on the school to end up using it. Think of it this way, is what I explained to them. If you had a gas leak in the chemistry lab for 6 years, would you let it go unnoticed and not worked on and hope that you never had an explosion? Or would you clear the room immediately and come in and fix it? And so once they kind of got that through their heads, that yes, indeed, this project is now going forward, and I'm going to run through all of the things that come into play. I've mentioned the risk management aspect of this, but now we get into the maintenance and upkeep of what it's like to go through a process of refurbishment. So here is a typical project timeline that you end up drawing up. And so you end up having to have that approval for the project manager contract, and that ends up having to go to our governing board that always meets on the second or third Tuesday of the month and goes over a bunch of stuff. And so that's why you see on the date here, permission to award is October 18th, 2011, because that's when it will go before the board. And then you generate all of the bid documents. Then in California, you have to have a first advertisement of the bid, and then you have to have a second advertisement of the bid so that plenty of companies have an opportunity to bid. Now in California, in the community college system, we have to use the lowest bidder on the project. So you can imagine the quality of work that we get when you always take the lowest bidder. But that's another story. So then you have your pre-bid, where the folks actually come out and see and walk and look at the scope of work for the project. And then you end up thinking and building in things, okay, Veterans Day, the district is closed. So then on that's supposed to be November 18th, not January 18th, but on November 18th, the bid actually opens, and we will let that run for 5 days, and then we will award the bid. So then we have our Thanksgiving break, and then finally, after everything, we award the bid, you still have to clear all of the bonding and all of the other things to make sure that, yes, they have the money and the proper insurances and all of that. And then you get your notice to proceed on December 15th. And the earliest that they can get in there due to exam week and little interruption on classes is December 19th. So then we're projecting that the project will be finished by January 20th. So that's a pretty decent timeline you can see for something that you would think, okay, it's a 3-week project, why can't we get them in there tomorrow and start and be finished in 3 weeks? Well, the other thing, I don't know if you guys have thought about this, but we've had to move. You see that they're going to get in there on December 19th and not be back and be finished until January 20th. For that whole month, we've had to switch our basketball schedules and go on the road. And this has caused a little bit of a controversy in our conference because we switched all of our conference games to where we're on the road on the first half, and then all of our conference games are at home in the second half. So our conference partners are now saying that in that second half of the season, when the games are important down the stretch, we've got all home games and we've got a competitive disadvantage. They are at a competitive disadvantage. So if you didn't think that timeline was a little complicated enough, here's an actual day-by-day account. And I know that this is small, but maybe you can increase the size of the slide. But just know that this goes through every bit of the whole process from the beginning, going from program and design phase of 32 days where we just finished all of the scoping. We took 12 days to do that, and we're in that project manager contract approved period. And then we're having to write down the specifications. If you think back to 2 slides ago with all of those lines that were all over the court, we have badminton as a class, and then we also have badminton as a sport in the California Community College system, and it could potentially be a sport that I add in the future from a Title IX concern. Relatively cheap to run and high participants on the female side. So we've got volleyball lines, we've got 4 square lines in there, we've got the high school basketball courts running the other way, we've got the full college court, 3 more volleyball courts. I mean, geez, it looked like a big tic-tac-toe board in there. So, but we have to be as specific as possible with all of those lines, and we can't just provide them with the NCAA rules. All of that stuff has to go into the bid documents. And then you can see the the bid processes and how they have to prepare them. And then they go to our district services, and then they get a 3-day turnaround before they approve this to go to this person. And there's so many different hands on this that it is a time-consuming process. But you have to look down at the bottom, I believe it's line 46, at the cure time. Depending on if you use water-based or oil-based, the cure time can be 5 to 7 days. So when they just finish, then the gym has to remain completely empty when the project's finished for everything to seal nice and good before you can get on it. So that kind of concludes the first part, and I hope gives you 2 little examples, one more of a risk management problem of how we're dealing with rattlesnakes on our campus, and then an actual facilities management issue and the time and the thought processes that goes into anything. And again, if you have any questions on this or interested in any part of this, feel free to email me.